Good morning, ladies and gentlemen from across the state of California, and to my colleagues here, as well as staff, court reporter, happy holidays to all of you. Welcome to the December 10th meeting of the California California High-Speed Rail Authority Board of Directors. This morning, we will follow the same format as in the past. We'll call the meeting to order first, and then we'll provide additional information to those of you who wish to direct comments to us today. So if the secretary could call the roll, please.
Good morning. Director Schenk.
Present.
Chair Richards.
Here.
Director Camacho.
Present.
Vice Chair Miller.
Present.
Senator Bell. Assemblymember Arambula.
Present.
Director Perea.
Here.
Director Gelmetti.
Present.
Director Escutia.
Here.
Director Boutros.
Present.
Director Williams.
I understand he'll be here shortly.
We have a quorum, Chairman.
Thank you, Mo. With that, if we can, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and
to the
to the republic
for which it
where it
stands,
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
with liberty
and
and justice for all.
Thank you. At this point, Mo, if you would please provide the instructions for those in the public who would like to address us today.
Will do. Good morning. Welcome to the California High-Speed Rail Board of Directors meeting. Today we are hosting this meeting via Zoom. In a moment, we will take public comment. First, I want to run through some important technical aspects of this meeting for offering public comment. If you are logged into this meeting via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature, typically located at the bottom of your screen, so that I can call on you to provide your comment. If you're dialing in by phone, pressing *9 will raise your hand and put you into our queue. Speakers will be called in the order that their hand is raised. Once you've been in the queue and your name is called, in the web meeting, please click the prompt on your screen to allow your microphone to be unmuted. On the phone, we will call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. At that point, you'll hear a message that you are being unmuted. Once unmuted, it will be your turn to speak. Please slowly and clearly say and spell your first and last name, and if applicable, state the organization you represent. After your introduction, each speaker is allotted 2 minutes to provide comments. Our court reporter is on the line to record these comments. If they need you to spell or repeat something, they may interject. And Sherman, give me one moment real quick. So first up for public comment, we have a Mike Beheen.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Mr. Bean. Yes, we do.
Thank you very much. Michael Behan, Deputy City Manager, City of Palmdale. I just want to say that we have been a longtime supporter of the California High-Speed Rail system, and we are very excited to announce that we'll be taking our Palmdale transit-oriented specific plan to our December 15th City Council meeting. And just want to say thank you very much for the High-Speed Rail for offering us a grant opportunity to pursue this document. This is a TOD specific plan that has form-based zoning, which allows maximum flexibility for developers. It has a full environmental impact report, and everything that we're hearing from the master developers out there is that that's what they're looking for. So we're very excited about that. And again, thank you so much. We appreciate the partnership with the authority, all the way from the CEO down to the staff at Rick Simon and others that we work with on a regular basis. I just want to say thank you and stay the course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Behan, and thanks for the hard work at the City of Palmdale. Please convey our best to your mayor.
Chairman, we have next in the queue a Matthew Serrato.
Mr. Serrato, welcome.
Thank you. How are you guys? Good afternoon, good late morning to everybody. Matthew Serrato, Mayor, City of Merced, Mattthew Serrato. Just again, as always, as we've been, Merced remains a supportive and willing partner, committed to creative solutions and really as best as opportunities as we can to really make this project as successful as possible. Again, as always, a lot of talk about the valley-to-valley connection, connectivity throughout California, the links to affordable housing, UC Merced, jobs connecting the Northern California and the Southern California mega regions, investment, in a traditionally low-income, more underserved area. Then a lot of other exciting opportunities too that we think you have in this part of in the northern San Joaquin Valley and also in the southern San Joaquin Valley. You have a lot of people with poor access to airports. It takes a while to drive to an airport, so having that link to the Fresno airport would be an enormous benefit to a lot of people. Increased connectivity between the northern and southern valley and Fresno in particular, and the airport there. Also, the link to Yosemite is a huge thing. 4 to 5 million travelers a year coming through Yosemite, an enormous potential for partnership with the federal government, with also Merced as well. Merced traditionally the gateway to Yosemite with a rail line that went up to Yosemite, way to alleviate Yosemite traffic. Currently on Amtrak, you can buy a ticket, stop in Merced, and you get on a bus system, Yosemite area rapid transit, and take that all in one. Buy the Amtrak ticket, it comes with a Yosemite ticket, and you get on a bus, go to Yosemite. So to be able to expand that with high-speed rail and ultimately ACE as well, coming to Merced would be a big thing. So the system fits: ACE, high-speed rail, Amtrak, UC Merced, Yosemite, all that. So we're excited and committed to a lot of creative solutions. So thank you guys for everything, and looking forward to the future.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for taking the time and for your comments, and happy holidays.
Chairman, we have a Karen King next in the queue.
All right, thank you. Ms. King, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Karen King. I am the CEO of Golden Empire Transit District. And I just wanted to express today the district's continued frustration regarding the high-speed rail project. We had been of the understanding that you would be taking some action on your business plan today. And now we understand that that has been put off until next spring. When the initial plan was released last spring, Golden Empire Transit District's property, which is located at the now identified Bakersfield Station location, was cited as an example for advance acquisition of right-of-way. We are anxious to work with you on that, and I just want to urge you to please move forward with that advanced acquisition. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King. And please note that Director Williams has joined us.
Chairman, we currently do not have anyone in the queue for public comment.
Okay, fine. And you did you expect any more than this, Mr. Secretary?
No.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you then. We will now move into the agenda items of today's agenda. Item number 1 is the consideration for approval of the October 15th board minutes. If we have no changes, do we have a motion, please?
Move approval.
Motion by Director Gilman, and is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, no oppositions, passed unanimously. Thank you. Item number 2 this morning is the establishment of an enterprise risk management program. This is an information item, as are the balance of the items on today's agenda.
Good morning, Chairman Richards, Vice Chair Miller, and esteemed members of the board. My name is Jamie Matalka, and I am the newly appointed Director of Risk Management and Project Controls. Today, I'll be presenting how our organization is refocusing on risk management and standing up an enterprise risk management program, or also known as ERM, as we have elevated risk management to gain a better view of risks across the landscape of this program. The agenda for today is to walk through our approach to ERM, starting with the definition, benefits, the mission and vision, governance and reporting, the operating model, and a roadmap to implementation. Next slide, please. I'd like to start off with a quote that really gets to the heart of risk management. And it comes from a well-respected individual in the risk management industry. And it goes, over the long term, the only alternative to risk management is crisis management. And crisis management is much more expensive, time-consuming, and embarrassing. Next slide, please. While there are several definitions of ERM from standard-setting bodies such as the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations of the Treadway Commission and the International Organization for Standardization, or also known as COSO and ISO, ERM can be defined as the culture, capabilities, and practices that organizations apply in setting and carrying out the enterprise strategy with the purpose of actively managing risk to realize and preserve value. A general theme of this strategy is to really minimize the risks that have negative effects, or also known as threats, and maximize the risks that have positive effects, also known as opportunities. While listing of risks is important, ERM is not just an inventory of risks within the authority. ERM principles apply at all levels of the organization and across all functions, covering strategy, setting, governance, internal processes, organizational structure and capabilities, data and analytics, communication, and performance metrics. ERM is intended to be fully integrated with an organization's structure and system of governance to enable risk-based decisions and provide reasonable assurance to the board and stakeholders that the authority has a systematic process to address risk in an overall effort to achieve the enterprise objectives. Next slide, please. While there are numerous benefits to implementing an ERM program, here are 7 key benefits that have been proven through the successful adherence to an ERM program. Number 1, improving the ability to identify, plan, and respond to risks. It improves the line of sight for the board and executive leadership in an effort to reduce surprises and allows for quicker action on potential opportunities and mitigation strategies. Facilitates internal communications and collaboration by establishing a common language of risk, seeks to improve transparency and traceability, reduces the frequency and magnitude of crises, establishes a single source of truth for risk data, and improves stakeholders management and communication. Next slide, please. One of the first things accomplished in setting up the ERM program was developing a mission and vision statement for the Risk Management Office with the goal of inspiring buy-in for refocusing the organization on risk management. Our mission is to foster a risk-aware culture to focus decisions on the proactive management of risks in support of the authority achieving its statewide goals. Our vision is an organization where every decision is informed and guided by a sound understanding of risk. Our main objective is twofold. Number 1, state-specific oversight on risk management with independent risk analysis and data gathering. And 2, integrate risk management into all significant activities and functions of the authority, supplementing, augmenting every aspect of our organization to empower and support our people in continuously improving our understanding of risks and our ability to manage them. Next slide, please. As the ERM program starts to take shape, the centerpiece will be the creation of a new management committee into our governance structure. The Enterprise Risk Committee, or internally referred to as the ERC, the primary goal of the ERC is to discuss, prioritize risks, and ultimately report those up to the board. The ERC is intended to be an oversight body comprised of members of the authority's executive and senior management team, including the Chief Executive Officer, the Chief Financial Officer, the Chief Operating Officer, the Chief of Rail, our PMO lead, which stands for Project Management Oversight Branch, our Chief Counsel, our Chief of Communications, the Deputy Director of Legislation, the Chief Auditor, our Chief Deputy Director, and myself as the Director of Risk. The committee will be administered by the Risk Management Office, and there will be a standardized tools, a standing agenda to review, evaluate emerging risks, prioritize risks, review management's responses to risk, and recommended risk actions. This graphic is portrayed in a circular fashion as is intended to represent a cohesive, collaborative, cross-functional, and inclusive team to discuss the risks of the organization. The key to this committee is its management participants, as each one has critical functional responsibilities and must sign off on various decisions at different points in time. And having an open and honest discussion on risks is critical to achieving the organization's objectives. For example, the range of topics could include internal and/or external risks. For instance, internal risks could include items such as organizational structure and capabilities, internal budgets and schedules, including forecasts and cost estimates, procurement models, or project and contract management. External risks could include broader market conditions like volatility in revenue streams, the political climate like a new federal administration, or the current reality we are living in today, a pandemic, including mandatory shutdowns. Finally, not all risks intended to be discussed in this committee are threats. Some could be opportunities. For instance, if a new federal program was to be released from the federal government, the committee might review a recommendation to orient the organization in a manner that enables us to compete for that new funding. Next slide, please. How we plan to instill confidence and integrity into the process. As shown in this slide, the ERM framework for governance and reporting is a bottoms-up and top-down approach as to increase transparency and accountability. The resulting risk information will be reported through the risk governance structure to provide the executive team and the board the information necessary to be informed and enable risk-based decisions. At the bottom of this diagram, the Risk Management Office is responsible for setting up the tools, templates, processes for data to be gathered and standardized with an oversight role from the Risk Management Office. In addition, the Risk Management Office will provide training, guidance, and be available to answer questions to support the various functions of our organization. Culminating that work is a preparation of a standard risk report, which will be presented to the Risk Committee to review management actions. Then that risk report will be reported up to the board on a regular basis. Next slide, please. This slide depicts the target operating model around which we will structure the Enterprise Risk Management Program. Focusing on the center of the diagram, first, the target operating model has 6 fundamental components. Leadership, which is setting the course and fostering a culture of risk management. A system of governance that promotes risk-based decision-making. Systematic, repeatable, transparent processes for planning, identification, assessment, response, reporting, and control of organization-wide risks. Data governance to establish a single source of truth for risk data and standardization. Analytical tools to ensure consistent analysis of those risks. Technology to support efficiencies in reporting risk and for the Risk Management Office. And finally, qualified and empowered people working collaboratively within a clear organizational structure. The outside of the diagram reflects the 4 main stages of the capital program. the strategic decision stage, where direction of the program occurs, the investment decision stage, where the prioritization or order of projects occurs, the procurement financing stage, where choice of delivery model and vendor selection occurs, and then the delivery stage, where managing execution of work occurs. Each of these phases has its own set of unique risks, which require different parts of the organization to be involved, but a constant theme is that the risk management is at the center of each component. To bring this to life, we are currently developing an enterprise risk management plan that will expand on the components of the target operating model and will lay the foundation for the deployment of the ERM program. In essence, we intend to eliminate siloed or groupthink, challenge assumptions, increase transparency, and overall have a healthy level of professional skepticism. Next slide, please. This slide presents key items from the Risk Management Office's roadmap to implementing the ERM program. In the short term, we're establishing the Risk Management Office, including a request for proposal for leading industry risk support, establishing the ERC committee and its administration, developing the enterprise risk management plan, leveraging the COSO framework. In the midterm goals, our goals include presenting the enterprise risk management plan to the ERC and populate an enterprise risk register and develop the draft risk report for the ERC to review with a focus on cost and schedule. Over the long term, our key goals are to develop a risk training program and ultimately enhance workforce capabilities. This presentation provides an initial look into the development of our ERM program. We are in the processes of setting up this now, and we are incorporating this into the 2020 business plan, which will provide additional details. Happy to take any questions.
Questions for Jamie, please.
Yeah, this is Lynn. How do we do this? Do I raise my hand or?
No, it's okay. Yeah, I see you now then.
Okay, thank you. Jamie, a couple of things. Can you just give us a little bit about your background in enterprise risk management?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the question, Director Schenk. So I have been with the authority for a little over 4 years now as the Assistant Chief Financial Officer, working on a number of different initiatives that the authority has undertaken. I have been a part of 3 of the 4 decision-making bodies of this organization: our Business Oversight Committee, our Program Delivery Committee, and our Administration Committee. Prior to that, I had experience over 5 years at the Department of Finance, working in 3 different industries on policy and fiscal matters in the healthcare, public health, and transportation industries.
Thank you. Just a couple of thoughts. It was a very detailed presentation. Thank you. The bottom line in enterprise risk management is the easiest is to be aware of the known risks, and we know what many of the risks are. And then there are the known that are unknown. We don't know exactly what they're going to be, but we know that they're going to be risks. And then, of course, there are the black swans like we have now with COVID. There are, you touched on culture and tone at the top, which is, in my experience, very important when you're dealing with risk management and enterprise risk management. So I see that the committee, the management committee, sounds very good. How will the committee leaders do the deep dive to the people who are on the ground who really understand the risks? So, for example, in a utility business, it's always good to talk to the people who are working the lines to see what the risks are. Managers understand some of it, but risks, as you well know, it's not a static issue. Risk management is sort of organic and changes. So what will be the process by which the managers on the committee will do those deep dives?
Well, I think that's a very, very good question, because we're working on that right now as part of our policy and procedures for this enterprise risk management plan. But I see facilitating the identification of risks through facilitated workshops, data analysis, looking at sort of lessons learned of what we've had in the past and working with our various functional leads to see what potentially could occur to impede them on to achieving their objectives.
I just have one last quick comment, and Brian, I've been talking to you about this. As a corporate director, I was and chair of risk committees for a couple of very big Fortune 500 companies. I found it very useful to be involved in the National Association of Corporate Directors. They have a division for public agencies, and their focus is on risk, and their risk advisory committee, it really has lots of very, very useful models. So I'm hoping that you all will look into that. As you were talking about consultants, one of the best out there, and they're not exactly a consultant, but a repository of information is this National Association. So I would commend it to you. But thank you. That was a very excellent presentation.
If I could just say one thing in response to that, Lynn, I want you to know that we are speaking with the NACD now about participating directly with them for this board. Of course, for those who don't know, the NACD is the National Association of Corporate Directors. They do, as Lynn indicated, they do trainings, focus areas, workshops on various things that are important for a board structure organization. Primarily, their focus is corporate, but they do have public sector participation. So next week, my chief deputy is meeting with their business manager and one of the public agencies here in California who is a member of that association, so we can learn a little bit more about how it works with a public sector body. So we are following up. They're meeting next week.
Good. Thanks, Brian, because even though some of it is focused on corporate, there are best practices that we could also use. So anyway, thank you for that.
The other thing that I would have just said, I think at the beginning of this presentation for the board members is, we certainly have learned a lot about risk in the current environment we're in with the COVID pandemic. But I wanted to also just say that one of the things that's led to this as a sort of building block to get us here toward enterprise risk management and setting up this committee and this program is, inspiration, if you will, from other projects I've seen where greater focus on risk, acknowledging, identifying it early on, had a transformative effect on what happens for program management. I know it's a project that in some ways is highly critical, but I would say that one of the big changes on even the Bay Bridge, a project that Andre Boutros is certainly familiar with, after long years of struggle, when they brought in a more risk-based approach to how to deal with that, some of the struggles on that project in 2005, including the use of greater risk assessments on what's happening and what's before the project. When that project concluded in 2013, from the time they brought that in place, it was both on time and on budget. Once you brought in the risk assessment group and the new oversight body. So I'm trying to learn from experiences that we've seen, where I've seen it's been successful. What's also really important here that I want to emphasize for the board members is I want greater independence on risk, on the risk that we do. I don't want to contract for risk services through any other entity. I want us to do it directly. Jamie is heading up the contract management of that. And we'll be contracting for risk services directly and not through any other entity. So I want to reinforce the independence of that, the independent nature of that. I think it's important for how we're guided. And we're all going to be a little bit made intentionally uncomfortable about dealing with these issues because we need to know where the weaknesses are and how to deal with those. And so I'm happy we're doing this. Tom and I have talked about it for some time, and we'll certainly come back to the board when we're moving forward on what the RFP looks like for those services. So there's more to come on this. We wanted to give you the initial picture today. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Could I just ask you to and maybe add a little bit more to that with regards to what you are looking for in soliciting through the RFP process? What sort of services are we looking for from attracting a leading industry risk consulting firm for additional support? What would we expect from them?
Well, we've used some of them more recently. For example, we contracted through the RDP just for the work that we're doing on our enhanced risk assessments on cost and schedule today. We brought in outside sources, including an entity that did the work for the FRA on this project before. We want them to come in and look at, as Lynn asked earlier, have an entity come in and work with our on-the-ground folks about what they're seeing, where risks are, not just in the construction space either, but in other elements of our program. Where else are we seeing risks? What things do we have to anticipate and address going forward? Ideally, they would be staffing through Jamie directly, the risk committee, preparing, working with the on-the-ground folks to identify what kinds of things we know or what kind of things we need to prepare for in different parts of the organization. One area, for example, that we are making a big move on is in the IT space. Our IT space, since I got here, had been much of that work had been contracted out. Others, doing the work on our IT infrastructure. We think it's important that become in-house more. So we've, over the last 2 budget cycles, have undertaken a process to get that moved in-house, and particularly the licensing agreements going forward. So there's things that we have to do. That was part of looking at that program and seeing some risks there that we need to address. So we want to bring people in to help us go through that internal analysis, identify those places where we have risks. It is certainly in the construction space too, but it's beyond that. It's in all parts of the enterprise. And so use that to then have the candid conversations about what we need to address and what the organization needs to look like to address things.
Great, that's good for us to know. Henry, did you have something?
Yeah, I do. 3 things. First, Jamie, thank you for the presentation. It was very thorough. Without going into too much detail, can you go just briefly touch on the history of risk management in the authority? We've been around 10, 12 years. Did we have it before? Was there a point in time that we didn't? And of course, now we're restarting. Just a little bit of that. And then the second, I think Brian answered already in terms of independence. My experience with risk managers and risk management as a function is that it is most effective when our risk manager can function independently and basically function as a truth teller. Sometimes we need to hear things that we don't want to hear. So I want to know what level of comfort you have in your independence to do that. And third, our next item is going to be Road 27. So had you been around the last couple of years, what would have been the role? What would have been the process for you to possibly help us avert that problem that we're now dealing with?
Director Pereira, those are fantastic questions, actually, because I think the history of risk here, we do have a risk program at the authority and have had one for a while, but the position that I'm currently in has been vacant for quite a while. But it's been more at the project level rather than at the enterprise level, which is the vision from our CEO Kelly on how to elevate risk so that we are seeing things or having better line of sight into what's going on, broadly speaking. I think the independence is a critical function as well. It serves to provide that integrity in the process and confidence in the process, and I think that the management team here is sufficiently supporting that. As you've heard from CEO Kelly just a few moments ago. On the Road 27 issue, I think that's a complicated one. I think that there are various dimensions to that. And while, can't speak to exactly how we would have done that, I could speak to that. We would probably had a messaging campaign. We probably would have been able to see it a little bit sooner and inform what was going on. But without, really digging into the details of that issue and finding out the core problems there, I wouldn't be able to necessarily give you a full plan of how we could do that. Although I do understand we are looking to make sure that something like that doesn't occur again.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Any other questions for Jamie or for CEO Kelly? I guess one final one then, Jamie, can you put any sort of, and if you did, I'm sorry I missed it, can you put any sort of a timeline for rollout and operation of the risk initiative here?
Yeah, no, appreciate that question too. The good news is I am here today. I'm already getting going with great support from our chief deputy, our chief operating officer, and our chief financial officer. So we're moving forward. We're informing the next business plan, the next program management plan, and working on getting those resources for the risk management office as we speak. It's probably one of my top priorities right now. Hopefully that comes online early 2021.
Okay, that's excellent. We're happy to hear it. We want it to be your top priority if it's at all possible. So thank you very much, Jamie, and very good report. Seeing no other questions on this item, we'll move on to our agenda item number 4, which is the business plan update. CEO Kelly.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure row 27 was item 3. Do you want to go back to that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I checked. Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I checked 3 and went to 4.
Okay.
Road 27, I apologize. So that would be with Mr. Hedges and Mr. Arquat. Good morning, Joe.
Morning, board. I was going to take the easy pass here, by the way, Brian. So no thanks.
You didn't let you off, Joe.
Look, we're going to go through, by the way, let me, Gassan is with me as he's been with me on all these briefs. So he can answer specific questions to TPZP, and he will also give specific proportions of this brief. Let me start with slide 2. Next slide, please. There you go. Now, the emphasis of this slide is that of the last slide of this presentation, and that is to restate the absolute necessity of safety. Safety in the short term during our ongoing construction and repairs, and also safety in the long term with regards to ensuring that the bridge is structurally stable and sound for its 100-year life. Okay, and the other piece that you will hear, basically that last slide, is communications, ongoing communications that continues as with regards to this presentation. And we just published another letter to the community, basically stating the contents of this current status and where we are at. So the community has been informed. So again, starting with the end in mind, that is that. Now, let me give you the current status. Is what we've done is this. We've replaced basically tendon 5, and I'm going to explain these tendons and strands and wires and in a couple of slides here, because I thought it was very important that we come to a common language as we go through this. Okay. The big thing is this. We have achieved BNS approval, right? That approval was late. Okay. Now that was right up against the start of what they call their holiday moratorium. The holiday moratorium is traditionally during when the highest traffic periods of rail, okay, moving goods to the market. The railroads are very protective of that period of time. So typically from October to the end of January, there is a moratorium on construction that possibly could threaten their ability to move trains. Okay. Now, with that in mind, all right, they pushed that off until the 21st of this month. However, though, we did not want to start repairs, have to secure those repairs, and start them back up in January. Felt that that would have just been inefficient and ineffective and would have forced us to protect the newly installed strands, tendons. Okay, did not want to do that. So we're going to quote unquote, I don't like the word winterize because we're just going to moratoriumize, and we're going to start the construction in early January. We will mobilize in the first couple of weeks of January and start work at earnest about mid-January. Okay, so very good. That's where we currently stand. Okay, now we have winterized And Ghassan, can you just give me a brief explanation of what winterize means with regards to the securing of that bridge?
So we do have confirmance from our engineer of record for the structure itself, coordinated with our false work designer, the engineer of record for the false work, and that the bridge is safe and it's good to keep for the time until we start. We have our quality control engineers, going there daily to inspect it, to make sure we have no issues. All the vent tubes that, where the water technically was coming through into the ducts have been sealed. And until January, in beginning of January, I think 3rd or 4th, we'll mobilize to start removing all the tendons out of the ducts, replace them, and plan on just pulling it, hitting it very hard to get bridge completed.
Okay, next slide, please. This basically reinforces what I said before. We have achieved BNSF approval with regards to beginning repairs. And as Ghassan alluded to, currently that bridge as it stands right now, TPZP has reinstalled the false work underneath it. That's what's holding it. We've shimmed it and taken the load. And we've also kept the existing strands. There's kind of a belt and suspenders with regards to safety, right? The bridge is able to stand by itself right now, right? But just to ensure safety, as we winterized over, we had the false work put back in and shimmed up, so it's also taking the load. So it's a double safety factor. Next slide, please. Okay, this basically states some of these milestones. Now, with regards to the Madeira Valley, you can see complete. I'll just go into the ongoing in progress. Madeira Valley, we have achieved an agreement in concept. Their board has voted for its approval. We're waiting for Madeira Valley to execute that. Okay. Also, too, it's important to note, even with the winterization that we're occurring or moratoriumization, the repair schedule remains consistent, basically summer 21. That is not in jeopardy right now.
Yeah.
Consistent with what we published before. Next slide. This is kind of I felt it was very important for the board to understand the anatomy of a tendon. Okay. Now I'm going to start with a wire. Okay. There are 7 wires in a strand. That makes basically one cable, as you can see. Now, there are 15 strands in each of the tendons, right? And the tendons are in the duct. So you pull the strands through the ducts. Okay. Now, there are 5 tendons or ducts per girder. Okay. Okay, and there are 4 girders for the bridge. They're known as A, B, C, and D. Highly technical. Okay, so that's kind of the anatomy of what you are seeing here. So when we talk basically strands, tendons, these are the things that we're talking about. When we've been reporting is breaking of strands, individual cables, right, in the tendon. Okay. All right, next slide, please. This shows a current status, right, of where strands are broke. Okay, you can see that in T4 we replaced a bunch of strands. You can see where they're broke currently right now. Again, this is just a safety measure. The engineer of record has verified that this bridge is safe and freestanding without the false work with regards to the tendons that are currently in place. As Ghassan alluded to, we monitor this daily. Next slide, please. Ghassan, why don't you kind of give your steps that you basically go through and to winterize over?
So what we did, we had our engineer of record give all the loads that for the structure, transmitted those loads into our false work engineer and had them work together to make sure that the bridge is safe. So, and that we're comfortable, we've got both their calcs and their stamps that the bridge is safe. Meanwhile, what we're doing, waiting until we get going back again, beginning of January. We've sealed all the vent tubes, so no more water goes in the ducts. We are injecting corrosion inhibitors too at the same time. We're monitoring the strands, and we have the false work fully engaged by our engineer of record. I'm not concerned. I mean, if I would even expect more strands to pop up, but our engineer of record is very comfortable because we have to replace all of them anyhow. So for the time being, there is no concern until we start working when we replace all those strands. Our QC staff is going literally every day to look at it, to make sure everything not changed. There is nothing that of surprise. And so far, everything has worked so well. Next slide, please. So our steps after when we were allowed to go back to work beginning of the year, we'll inspect, of course, all the false work. I mean, we're inspecting the false work now. We'll continue to do it again, but we're going to remove all the strands, make sure the ducts are completely empty and dry. We will then go ahead and start installing the strands. And at the same time, while all that is going on, we are monitoring the cracks and making sure there's no cracks, and if any, to seal all the cracks. That will enable us, once we get those first 3 ducts filled with the strands, that just takes the pressure from us and we'll be able to proceed with the construction of the bridge. It is going to take us between now and June, or midsummer, to finish the bridge, because our plan is to be working on the structure, while we're also working on the approaches on both sides, the north and south side of the bridge, to build the earthwork against the abutments and build the roadway. And so we'll be working on those at the same time, both the bridge and the approaches.
Son, on your closure pores, is it common to seal cracks?
Yes. Now, our engineer was actually expecting it. He said that's typically, you should expect that. And we have him look at it. And so everything we're doing is under our engineer of record guidance.
Okay, thank you.
I'm done unless there's any other questions for me.
Yes, Hassan. Is there a part of this process for the strands? Do we not pressurize this to see whether or not there's any leaks?
We actually do. We do a pressure test for the duct, and we will be doing that when we put all the strands in. We will be doing the pressure test. Yes.
Currently, right now, Director Camacho, the repair plan that's approved is to do the pressure test, but also to ensure continuity of grout from the west to the east, is to basically to grout all 5 ducts simultaneously.
Okay, but where did we fail? There was, obviously, we had to have inspection. Did we fail in the inspection of either the corrosion inhibitor or in the pressurizing, that we didn't see this coming?
Where we failed essentially is the vent tubes as they come out of the precast girders. When the rebar was being installed, those vent tubes actually were broken. Hard to notice or see because the rebar was pushing against them. So then you've got air coming in, and also that was the key where all the water came in. So when we had the winter, the water all came in through those vent tubes.
Was on somebody installed that.
Yes.
So who's liable then for that installation if it was installed improperly? And secondly, somebody should have inspected that, and there has to be a method for inspection. Now that
Absolutely.
inspection would have, had we pressurized it, we would have been able to see that there was a failure somewhere, and we wouldn't have gone this far in construction knowing there was a failure. And
Just so you're aware, we did pressurize it, per the requirement, and you're supposed to maintain the pressure. I forgot for how many, for a minute or so. We did, and it reached to the requirement at the time was 50 psi, and it's been lowered to 30 psi because we can definitely achieve that. But at the time, we were not able to maintain the 50 psi. And we were trying to figure out where the cause for that. So we actually thought it was coming from the closure for the cracks. And until later on, when the strand started to fail, that we saw water inside the ducts. So we were unable to see those breaks in the vent tubes. They were very hard to see, and that's what happened.
Yeah, but okay.
But yes, you're absolutely correct. There should have been better inspection. And so the precast girders come in with those vent tubes installed. The rebar contractor comes in, installed the rebar. The inspection should have noticed all of this stuff, but it was not even, we were not aware even that the water was entering into the ducts. And that's where the problem, that's what caused the failure, the corrosion inside the duct.
Okay, we've had, based on some of the other information you just provided us, we had WJE do a root cause analysis.
Yeah.
We had the engineer of record do some analysis. The designer of record probably did some analysis.
Yeah.
And yet we had these strand failures. Who's going to pay for the cost associated with all of that extra work?
As I said last time, that's our mistake and we take responsibility for it.
Okay, so Joe, how do you attribute your staff time that are looking at this for inspection? Do we then go back to against the contractor for that type of cost as well?
We'll assess, we'll review the contract, look at our contract options, and we'll assess the fuel intent of the contract.
I didn't quite understand what.
Yeah, I didn't either.
We will go back, I will review the contract, right? And I'll see what options are available to us. Right now, I cannot speak directly to that.
You'll have our chief counsel also take a look at the contract.
Yes, sir. That's no problem.
Well, it just seems to me.
Is there, Mr. Gassan, what's the estimated cost of the repair?
Well, so far, what we have actually incurred is about $600,000 between the rework and the subcontractor costs and things like that. So we're absorbing that.
Okay. And do you have an estimate of what it's going to cost to completion?
At this point, you know, I cannot tell you for sure. I'd have to sit down and calculate. But the bottom line is, what is left is just to pull the strands out and put them back in. And I don't see that to be more than $150,000 at the moment.
Okay.
But that's just a rough estimate, Tom. I cannot tell you for sure.
That's fine. That's fine for now. Thank you.
You bet.
Yes, Director Scuccia.
I just wanted to again just get clarification, because right now, the gentleman just indicated that so far we have absorbed about $600,000, you know, to do all these repairs. So is it fair to assume, this question is addressed to Mr. Hedges, are we going to seek reimbursement from the contractor for that? Because yesterday during the briefing of some of the board members, I was led to believe that we were not going to pay anything, but rather that the contractor agreed that they, you know, did something wrong and they're going to pay for it. Is that true?
Yes, it is, ma'am. The 600 that was referred to was that of the contractor's cost. I think that you're referring to.
Okay,
Those are currently without doubt being absorbed, as you just heard, by the commitment of Ghassan. These are TPZP's costs. I will do a contractual review with the support of legal to see what options we have to reclaim any of the authority costs.
all right.
Member Scutia, the Hassan is in fact not our staff, but the staff of the contractor. So when he said we absorb it,
I got it. Thank
Okay.
you so much for the clarification, Mr. Camacho. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Joe.
I think Ben wanted to.
I'm sorry, so just 1 second. Or did you say you're done, Joe?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then Director Perea.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to follow up on Director Camacho's comments. I mean, I agree with where the statements that he made. And I just wanted to be clear that just as Ghassan mentioned at the last meeting, that TPCB would be absorbing the full cost. What I want to make sure and or ask is, how do we know, or how will we know that this contractor won't try to recoup these costs through change orders in other areas or other parts of their contract? You know, having had experience with these, I know that's kind of how it works sometimes. So what do we have in place? And maybe it's our risk management folks who can make sure that we're not getting change orders on the back end on something else that will recoup their costs. How do we, and I have another question, but can you go ahead and do that?
I would like to answer that one. I think your question is more insulting than it is. You're making
No, I
a
think it's a
statement.
good question because it's taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I'm with you 100%
Well, then, okay,
in
then
taxpayer
don't be insulted.
dollars. We're not going to turn around and go get somewhere money from somewhere else. I told you this bridge is our responsibility. We take care of it, and that should be the end of it.
No, it's not the end of it, okay?
It's not the end
We're
of
going to
it.
have a
No, it's
disagreement
not the end
because
of it. And
you're
to tell you the
making
truth, I don't
accusation
appreciate
that
your
we
comment.
are going to turn around and go recoup this money from a different location. That's not a fair statement.
Well, okay, we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
My second question, Ghassan, for you is earlier on the report on the milestones, you talked about the Madera Valley Water Company agreement.
Yeah.
And I understand that they are moving forward with that project, but it was stated today that we're waiting for them to execute the agreement. And my understanding, based on some calls this morning, is that they are not going to be bringing on their inspector until such time that TPCP provides them an additional $20,000 in their fund to continue their processes, and that's been on hold now, or there is somewhere in your process. My point is that the contractor is ready to begin work January 18th to start moving those water lines, but I don't know how we're going to make that January 18th date if the water district is waiting for funds to go into that pot so that they can put out the RFP to hire that person. So my question to you is, when will TPCP be cutting that check?
So let me add a little bit to this unit of clarification. The authority doesn't have an agreement with Madera Valley Water Company. The authority came to me and said, hey, will you cut the check for them so at least they can review the document? Absolutely, and I thought I did that. Now, regarding the agreement that you're referring to, they sent me an agreement, but the agreement is only between us and Madera Valley Water Company. Typically, we have we have what we call the three-party agreement, the high-speed rail, ourselves, and Madera Water Company. The authority and Madera Water Company could not come to an agreement for whatever reasons. I do not know all the details behind the scenes. So they sent the agreement to me, and I was willing to work to resolve it. However, they're putting like LDs that are unacceptable. Things like $2 million if you touch the water valve and shut it. There's a lot of other LDs that they put in the agreement. And I told my staff, there's no way I'm going to sign this kind of agreement. And this needs to be resolved between the authority legal and Madera Water Company. And we're happy to step in and work and support both sides because I want the job done. Because if that water line is not done on the north side of the abutment, I cannot finish the north approach to the bridge.
Understood. And that's the
Dr. Chang?
nature, and that's the nature, hold on, Tom, Mr. Chairman, that's the nature of my question.
Yeah.
I mean, the history that you've mentioned, that is now history. You know, the authority working with the team and the Madera Valley Water District has resolved all that. Now we're at the point of getting to signing off on the agreement. The issue for Madera is they have put in a request for additional funds so they can go out to RFP now, so that they can hire the inspector to move forward. And now that's delayed. And I understand my role is policy, but I was aware of this issue. We tried to get people together to work it out, and I believe we have. But I step back, and these are the types of delays that keep pushing our project back. So I guess I'll just leave it there, and I'll leave it for our CEO, Mr. Kelly, to work with the right folks internally to figure this thing out, because it's just a matter of writing a check so that a district can hire an inspector so that we can move those water lines so you can finish your work. It's that simple.
So let me clarify though, but I don't.
Ghassan,
Ghassan, okay, Henry, I worked on this morning, right, with our regional director, right? We are moving the 20,000 as we speak. That will allow Madera to execute this agreement so that we can come into a more permanent funding status with them. That is on its way. It's being done as we speak.
Great, thank you.
So that issue is being resolved. Now with regards to change order issue, is this. Every change order is reviewed at multiple levels, right, for its accuracy and relevance, okay? We provide levels of governance to oversee that what you just alluded to will not happen. We have a strong sense of governance and stewardship over those change orders. Okay, so you have my word that will continue, right? And Ghassan will be held to his word, which I'm confident of.
Thank you, Joe. Director Schenk.
Yeah, sorry to be a broken record on this, but since day one, my question has been, who's going to pay? And Ghassan, may I just respectfully say, please don't be insulted by these questions. We're a diverse group, but we have a lot of experience in dealing with contractors doing business for the state, and we don't ascribe any moral turpitude or anything that nefarious, but we have seen it too often that in fact, these kinds of costs are recouped from the state. We want to see it come out of TPZP's profits. It's as simple as that. And we have, even though we're appointed by different entities, governor, pro tem, speaker, we are responsible to the people of the state of California. We're responsible to the bondholders. We must dig deep on these kinds of issues. And so please don't take it as an insult. This is our responsibility. This is what we must do because we have to do our job as well. And Ernie brought up the administrative costs that are incurred. I want us to do more than just look at what legal recourse. We want you to do the right thing and make sure that the High-Speed Rail Authority is reimbursed for their costs in this. The delays, it's not going to be TPZP's ultimate reputation. It is ours as a board. It's ours as the High-Speed Rail Authority. And it these delays just add to the eroding of trust of the people in this project. So we need to do this, and every one of us, no matter what our position or where we came from, feel very strongly about this. So I'm hoping that you're hearing what we're saying and not look at it through a lens of insulting you, because that's not what we're doing.
I can assure you I respect everything you're saying and all the other board members. I have no problem there, but I'm just telling you, at least from my perspective, what's going to happen. I came out when you first asked me the question. I said, we take responsibility for it.
Yes.
And I can assure you we'll continue to do so.
And I will assure you that we will continue
Yeah.
to dig on that and push on that.
Fine.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. All right, Director Boutros, did you have something? Okay, fine. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for that.
We're not going to brief, by the way, Tom, but we can call it quits if you want to.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I did ask you earlier if you were done. Go ahead then.
Oh, no. We got a couple of quick slides out of here.
Sure, please.
Go back to the slides, please. We'll wrap up very, very quickly. Again, what I want to stress here is oversight on this bridge, and it's oversight just not for this bridge, but it's a little bit of a reapproach with regards to not only CP1 but all the way through CP4. So again, it's all these things we've applied almost everywhere. So it's a good news story here. We've definitely have learned from our lessons. Keep going, please. Next slide. Okay, again, this is some of the things that have taken place already. I've reported on these. I won't go into each of them, but we've added quality staff. We've brought in some Caltrans individuals to help us as to bolster up some of our quality control. And two is we will ensure that basically that the strands installed, this is the key, the strands installed are basically a rust-free at time of installation, verified, protected while they are non-grouted, okay, and ensured that we have no water intrusion during the non-grouted period. Next slide, please. Again, this is the last slide, so let me just reiterate again. Safety, structurally sound in the near and short terms, and then two, with regards to our communication with the community and our strong commitment to quality oversight and contract management. And that concludes.
All right, thank you very much, Joe.
If I may, just want to clarify one thing, if I may.
Sure.
I wasn't aware of this $20,000 check. A while back, just so you know how I'm willing to have my team work with Madeira Water Company, I actually contacted directly with Gertch and changed even my rules to make sure we progress the design with Gertch and Associates for this water line. So we will always work with you. It's not an issue for me. All I need is clarity, and we will always work with you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kassan.
Thanks.
All right, we will move on to the next agenda item. If I get this right, Director Kelly, it's the business plan update.
Yes, sir, Mr.
There you
Chair.
are.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Playing checkers with us here.
I know, sorry. Thank you. I want to just update the board on the status of the 2020 business plan, a very brief presentation here. Happy to answer any questions. I think the first and most important thing, which we talked about in our informal briefing, is that the deadline for the adoption of the business plan has been extended. This is by agreement between the administration and legislative leadership. I have a graphic here of a letter we received from Senate President Pro Tem Tony Atkins on this issue. I'm expecting a similar letter any moment or any day now from the Speaker's office as well. But the business plan adoption has been postponed and reconcepted or redefined a little bit. And all I mean by that is initially the December 15th, 2020 business plan date was going to be the final business plan. And what we're moving to now is a February 12th date for a 2021, essentially, a draft plan that will then be subject to, some public comment and appropriate legislative oversight hearings, which are usually par for our course when we do a business plan. So shifting the dates allows that to occur. It also allows us to coordinate and brief and have conversations with the incoming federal administration with the change of the administration at the federal level. So pushing back the date enables us to do these things, enables us to engage with the legislature concurrent with the budget process that will be ongoing this spring. And I just want to indicate to the board that this has occurred by agreement between the administration and legislative leadership. Next slide. This is a slide that I actually used at our last hearing, but again, it's a definition of sort of the areas of the business plan focus that you will be seeing as we come forward with it. Again, we're spending quite some time defining the COVID-19 program impacts on this program and this project. It's allowing us to do full description of risk assessed costs, schedule, scope, and revenues of our current work. We'll be describing how we look to move and sort of start to close the books on the 119-mile Central Valley construction part. What I mean by that is we are turning the corner now into the second half of that and trying to put the beginning of this project in our rearview mirror a little bit over the course of the next couple of years as we advance construction in the Central Valley. Our strategy for moving beyond that initial construction segment and how we will look to early operable options elsewhere. We want to display the strategies that demonstrate very important lessons learned. And again, the COVID-19 environment is part of that, but clearly you'll hear us talk about a greater focus on risk and risk management as we move forward, methodical and incremental discipline program advancement. And that includes things like implementing a stage gate process for future procurements. And really what that means is doing smaller bites before we go forward with broad construction projects to make sure we have a strong handle on what where we are on pre-construction things like right-of-way and utility relocations, at least those being identified, and full and refined costs before we get further into construction. So you'll see us outline those kinds of things in the plan. Again, we want to reestablish our functional federal partnership with the new administration coming in and addressing issues raised by the legislature, specifically the peer review group, but specifically reviews of the ridership numbers that we incorporated in our 2020 plan last spring, making sure that those have been independently reviewed and verified, and then also working forward on our MOU development with the San Joaquin JPA, something that the peer review group suggested we do. Lastly, there'll be a full description of where this project fits in the broader statewide transportation climate change focus in California. So again, that's a quick update. Primarily was to let folks know what the schedule change is, the fact that that's part of a broad agreement between the legislature and the administration, and we are now moving forward on that pace. So with that, I'm happy to stop and answer any questions here before we move on to the next agenda item.
Yeah, Brian, go ahead. Brian, just a quick question. Do you have any
I'm sorry.
updates on
Henry,
updates on discussions with Washington on future transportation funding?
Yeah, let me speak to that in 1 second. Tom, I just want to make sure you know you're muted so you can call out members, but I want to make sure you know you're muted. Yes, on that, Henry, I will update you that just yesterday, a bill was introduced by Congressman Moulton out of Massachusetts, which calls for a massive new federal investment in high-speed rail across the country. I think his estimate is $41 billion per year over the next 5 years. Again, it's just a bill introduction at this point, but there is national leadership on the issue that's in place at the congressional level for sure. There's also work that's being done on just expanding some of the more traditional programs that have been part of the federal FAST Act, reestablishing those and moving forward on legislation to provide new transportation funding going forward. Some of that we're going to have to see how that develops after things like I think the House and Senate are both settled after January elections, but clearly there's a positive view on getting to infrastructure. I've heard both leaders from both the Senate and the Congress say, and the House say, that they're interested in infrastructure being a part of the COVID-19 response going forward. We think that's a good thing. And of course, one of the reasons we want to be able to spend a little bit more time to coordinate a brief with the Biden administration is as they're coming in to make sure that we understand what they want to propose and how it might affect this program. So there's a lot to do.
Great, thank you.
Dr. Skusha?
Yes. Brian, can I get a copy or at least the number of the congressional bill that has been introduced?
Yes.
Because I noticed that Dr. Arambula is still, here on the Zoom call. It might be a good idea for the Assembly and the Senate to jointly introduce a resolution on the Senate floor and on the Assembly floor, basically asking Congress, it's almost like a sense of the legislature of California, but asking, and just put in the record, asking Congress that we need funding here in California for high-speed rail. So, if I can get a copy of whatever you have for that congressional bill, that would be great. Second of all, I'm assuming that as you are talking to the Biden administration folks, I guess, they're probably looking for quote unquote shovel-ready projects. So I'm assuming, is that going to be the way that perhaps you're going to package these projects to the Biden administration, and I don't know if what shovel ready means, but considering that was a term that was used a lot in the 2008 Obama ARA projects, I guess I remind you of that term of art to see if that's the way we have to package it before the Biden administration, shovel ready.
Senator Scuti, I appreciate the question. I want to tell you in all candor that I don't know yet, because we don't, the Biden administration has not announced who their transportation folks will be yet. What I really am looking forward to, and what I mean about the importance of communication directly to the Biden administration now, is we have a partner on this project in the FRA, and there's an opportunity here for us to reestablish a more functional kind of relationship. And I think we have some briefing to do with them about where this is, where we are, what we'll be looking forward coming into the months that are coming up. We haven't had that opportunity yet, and that's one of the things that we need to do. So I don't want to overstate anything I'm doing with the Biden transition team right now. They're figuring out who their leadership will be in the transportation space. I am being responsive to the idea, of course, that the president-elect, who laid out during the campaign season, his emphasis on infrastructure, his emphasis on clean electrified transportation options. And those are things that speak very well to us. So there is an important opportunity coming up. I'm not advanced enough with them to know exactly what legislation should look like or what form that should take.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I will get the Molten information to you today.
Yes, and I'm hope that maybe Dr. Arambula, can follow up, because it's a good idea to make sure the state legislature is on record, that we have a bipartisan vote, to therefore show the Biden administration that everybody's behind this project.
Yeah, appreciate that.
All right, thank you, Director Scucci. Any other questions for Brian? Seeing none, we'll move on to our final agenda item before we have a closed session today. This will be I'll make this brief today, for a update from the, yes.
I'm sorry. Forgive me, but I gave you that was the business plan update. I also have a CEO update, and which is item number 4.
I thought you already did it.
I'm sorry. That was item 3.
Okay, I guess I'm not paying attention to you today, Brian. I'm sorry. Anyway.
I don't blame you.
Anyway, welcome back. Welcome back. We're now look forward to your CEO report, Brian.
Okay, I will move expeditiously. Mr. Chairman and members, I just want to go through a couple of program updates that I've been asked about from a couple of members stemming from the last board meeting. I want to provide some update, but first I want to start with a little bit of good news, and I think an important acknowledgement for this project, and that is what you see there on that graphic is a picture of an award that this project received from a national group that's been established by the National Public Works Association and the National Civil Engineers Association. This group is a group that is called the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure, and what they do is they look at mega projects or big infrastructure projects around the country and assess how they're doing on it from a sustainability standpoint. And I'm pleased to share with the board today and announced today, both by the ISI and by us, that we were recipients of their Envision Platinum rating for our sustainability practices. And that's not just what we're doing in construction on this, but also what we propose to do in operations and how we are offsetting emissions even during the construction, things like requirements of the cleanest available heavy equipment technology, planting of trees to offset carbon emissions from construction equipment, and those types of things across the board to our commitment on renewable power going forward to our hope and our intent to have zero emission stations and things like that. So this is an award that we received from the ISI. They delivered it to us earlier in the week, and they announced it publicly today. So again, I'm very proud of the work that we do here. The project, once it's fully operational, will see important emission reductions in areas like greenhouse gas emissions and other public health emission sources that are dangerous for the public health, that things like this project will help reduce. And so this is just an acknowledgement that I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of, and I'm very proud of this. And I want to thank also, just publicly, if I could, Meg Cederoth, who is the director of our sustainability and planning division. You all know Meg. She reports to you during our sustainability plan adoptions. She is the one who spearheaded the effort and worked with the ISI, had them look at what we're doing. They made their own assessments, but she was our contact with them. And I'm very thankful and proud of the work that Meg has done for us here. So simply wanted to acknowledge that.
Brian, it's Lynn. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So as I mentioned in our briefing, this is wonderful, and congratulations to all who worked on it. But just another piece of lucite in the office is nice, but we really need to work with them to get this out publicly, broadly, not just in the environmental community, but broad-based across the state, because this is significant, and we should be they should be tooting our horn rather than our trying to do it.
Yeah, I should say that just this morning, they did put out their own release on this. They had awarded this project with this. It just came out today. I'm, again, very pleased with this. And one of the things that I think it's important to just pause and just recognize here, when the legislature put together, and at the time, I was in a different role, but the legislature put together the cap and trade program. The things that they wanted cap and trade investments to achieve were economic advancement, economic development in disadvantaged communities, and of course, the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, and great commitments to sustainability with those investments. And this project, to me, and this award is a little bit of validation that we are achieving what was intended to be achieved by the creation of that program and the award of those funds to this project. And so, again, I'm very, very proud of this, and your point is well taken. So I appreciate that. I will move on now to the next thing I just wanted to update. Director Escutia had asked me before, I think when we came out of the last hearing we had in October, the last meeting we had on the status of our MOUs with surrounding communities relative to the mitigation efforts and the environmental justice efforts in the town of Fairmead. This is part of our environmental document approval for the Central Valley Y. I'm happy to report that just this morning, there are 3 different MOUs that we are negotiating. All 3 all 3 together enable us to do some of the mitigation issues that we talked about in the relative to the city of Fairmead during our adoption of the Central Valley Y document. Things like improving water service and sewer services, water quality issues in that area, working on a community center in Fairmead, and making some other improvements to that community. So they take a commitment from the surrounding cities to get some of those done, the surrounding county. We are working through each of those on a daily basis. I'm happy to report this morning that I was just informed as we were meeting that the city of Chowchilla has signed their MOU with us just this morning. So that one is advanced. County of Madera is a more formal agreement than just an MOU, and we are going back and forth on language on that. I expect that to be done as we get into early January. And with respect to the Fairmead Community and Friends, I believe we have an agreement in principle they will likely wait for the conclusion of the agreement with the County of Madera before they sign. But I expect all of 3 of these to be done as we get into the very early part of January. And I'm hopeful that when we next meet, I'll be telling you that these are all complete. So that's where this stands right now. Okay. Next issue I wanted to report on, we did hear from Karen King this morning, and this was a direction that came after our October hearing from both Director Perea and Board Chair Tom Richards to follow up with the Golden Empire Transit entity. I did speak with Karen earlier this week about where we are, and there's a little bit of a timing issue that we have to work through with them. In short, I think it's important for the board to understand that the Golden Empire Transit District in Bakersfield, they have a facility that is it is smack dab in the center of our right of way as we enter the F Street Station location in Bakersfield. So we will have to work with them to relocate that facility. The timing issue that's important for them is separately, they are under a mandate to increase their inventory of clean zero emission buses. And for them to do that requires them to make some capital investments in their facility so that those new buses can be maintenance and serviced. There's a timing point for them to relocate. We want them to make those necessary improvements they have to make at their new location, not their current location. And we will need to work through how we do the acquisition of that location in a timely way so it works for both parties. I spoke with Karen earlier in the week on this. I've directed our Central Valley Regional Director, Interim Director, Garth Fernandez, to follow up with her facilities lead so that we have a full understanding on exactly what their timeline is, what their capital needs are in order to meet their requirements on the clean bus program. And we will come back to the board when we have a fuller understanding of our best plan to make sure we can execute this in a way that makes sense for both they and us. And so, again, I have been in communication with Karen. We'll continue to work with her office, and I'll report back to the board on the status of this as we go forward. So I just want to update those items. And if we can move to the next slide, Tom, if you'll indulge me, we do have I think we have, I'm going to look at Justin to make sure it's ready to go, but this is our December hearing, and usually with our December hearing, we do a very brief recap on the year that was. We have a very short video here that just reflects what the authority has done in 2020, and I thought I'd share that with the board members as I conclude the CEO report. So, Justin, if that's ready to roll, why don't we play that video?
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for this meeting today. Appreciate these crazy times, a new normal. Your mic is on mute. These are the catchphrases of 2020. But for California High-Speed Rail, our 2020 motto has been overcoming and progressing. The global COVID-19 pandemic has challenged the way we live and work, and high-speed rail is no exception. On the job sites, we teamed up with our contractors to keep workers healthy and allow essential construction in the Central Valley to continue. But like many of you, our day-to-day work moved to a virtual platform, including public hearings and meetings. In the Central Valley over the last year, we've more than quadrupled the number of workers on job sites each week. And from August through mid-November, 5 high-speed rail structures opened in the Central Valley, including the Poso Creek Viaduct, the first structure to open in Construction Package 4 in Kern County. Across the state, our progress has kept on going. In Northern California, with the help of $714 million contributed by high-speed rail, our partners at Caltrain are moving ahead on electrifying the corridor between San Francisco and San Jose. Trains are now being tested in Utah, and more than 1,400 poles for electrification have been installed. In Southern California, our board approved $423 million for the transformative Link Union Station project at Los Angeles Union Station. This project paves the way for future high-speed rail service in the region.
It's an important part of an overall.
Congressional support for high-speed rail stayed strong in 2020. In February, Congressman Jim Casa used the San Joaquin River Viaduct as a backdrop to unveil the High-Speed Rail Corridor Development Act of 2020. It authorizes $32 billion in federal funds for high-speed rail corridors. Meantime, Congressman Seth Moulton also unveiled a white paper which is expected to become legislation emphasizing support for high-speed rail projects nationally. 2020 also made way for new leadership on our board of directors. Tom Richards was voted board chair, and Nancy Miller was voted vice chair at our September meeting. Significant progress was made on the environmental front as we issued 2 draft environmental documents in Southern California, as well as 2 in Northern California. And in September, we completed a record of decision, meaning full environmental clearance for the Central Valley Y. Opening in October, the first students are already learning valuable trade skills at the Central Valley Training Center in Selma. The partnership between High Speed Rail, the City of Selma, the Fresno County Economic Development Corporation, the Fresno Economic Opportunities Commission, and the building trades, this program provides free apprenticeship classes and hands-on construction industry training. Graduates of this program will look to work on the nation's first high-speed rail project. High-speed rail is doubling down on efforts to reach a broader audience. This fall, we relaunched a new and improved I Will Ride student engagement effort. The program is designed to inform, engage, inspire, and connect students to California high-speed rail. In December, the authority received a platinum rating by the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure. It's the first time a program the size and complexity of the high-speed rail project has been recognized for its sustainable efforts. At a time when jobs are needed most, high-speed rail is proud to be creating opportunities. In 2020, we passed 2 major milestones. In the spring, we announced crossing the 4,000 jobs created mark in construction, and we expect to hit another milestone by the end of the year, passing the 5,000th construction job created. Nothing about 2020 has been easy or business as usual. But as we head into 2021, we will continue to meet whatever challenges are presented and continue to make progress.
Okay, just a brief video to update folks on things that we accomplished in 2020. And I think with that, I'm happy to end the CEO report, Tom, and stop talking.
I guess for sure, yeah. Well, all things considered, Brian, it's really, with the accomplishments that you've directed, it's been a great year in otherwise very adverse circumstances.
It's certainly been a challenging year, no doubt about that.
It's been challenging for sure. I don't know. Yes, Director Scusia.
I am so sorry. You're probably going to hate me by the end of today, but I thought the video was great. I loved it. I love your glamour shot, Tom. You know, you look really great, and so does Nancy. But I actually think the video is so good. Would it be possible, Brian, for you to release that video and to send it to every single member of the state legislature, all 140 of them?
We'll certainly make it available. Yes.
Or else give me a link. Send me a link.
Absolutely.
I will get going on that, because I think we need to start developing that type of transparency.
We will make sure this gets out broadly. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
I can't speak for Nancy. I don't know if we would want to have our photos removed and replaced with the new members of this year, Director Scusia and Director Boutros and Director Williams. I mean, after all, we haven't signed anything in Hollywood yet, so Nancy and I are still looking.
I'll be your agent.
Thank you. Well, you're close enough to probably do it. Okay, thank you, Brian, and thank you for the year and for all of your management and staff who have made this possible. I'm going to just very briefly move on to the last item and not step over it. and think that I've already given it to you today. But just a very quick briefing or overview of our Finance and Audit Committee meeting today. And then afterwards, as everyone knows, we've got a closed session. The meeting today was basically to review financial information as well as construction information. Just a couple of highlights on the financial side. It doesn't sound like much, but it means a lot for those of us who've had the honor of being on this board for a long time and realizing what things were like over 4 years ago or so, when we were constantly having problems with payables and avoiding penalties for late payment. We've now completed 45 months without any penalties or late payments. In terms of cash management, we're reasonably the same as last month, down slightly. The authority has at its disposal about $2.125 billion at this time. We've made headway on reducing our vacancy rate in employees. As you know, we picked up an additional 85 state positions in the plan for reducing our consulting consultants uses for positions that can be handled by state employees. So that's why our number is high as it is, but it's even lower at looking forward to the next month with regards to additional reductions in the vacancy. Those positions are important to ensure the success of moving into a more state employed-based authority. Construction spending among the 4 design build contractors was slightly up from the month before. The expectation is the same again for the next board meeting. What's another piece of really good news is that, as you know, we've had difficulty in getting our RA match approvals from the FRA for the last 18 months or so. We have had improvement. I think some 600 million approved now, a little bit more than that. But when you take into account what's we've verbally been told that they're reviewing and they have no difficulties with, along with what Brian Annis and his team are still processing locally, meaning in Sacramento, with the with the forwarding of those invoices and approval, we will have pretty much met the state or the state match for the ARA grant. We would be at about 99.4%. Currently, the amount of contract work that we have under construction, and that's more than just all contracts that we've got outstanding, is increased about $30 million. Last month, we're up at about $8.35 billion under contract. Have currently still about $1 billion in, about $1.7 billion in contingency. In the construction side of things, I'll just mention a couple of things. Construction continues to go forward. Still got ways to go, as we all know, but we are making progress. Increased the guideway by about a mile in the month reviewed, and I think picked up another 2 structures. I think I'm going to leave it at that right now, unless anybody has a request for any additional information. And seeing none, as you know, what we're going to do next is we are going to not adjourn the meeting, but close it while we go into closed session. I want the public to know that after the closed session, I will return to report or provide any comment with regards to anything to report from the closed session. Before we close today, I want to mention, not to leave this on a sad note, but it is sad for those who had any opportunity to have known Larry Willis. We're deeply saddened by the loss of Larry Willis, president of the AFL-CIO's Transportation and Trades Department. He will be missed by all whom he touched, worked with, and advocated for. We send our deepest sympathy and prayers to Mr. Willis's wife and daughter. May we have a moment of silence. Thank you. We will adjourn today's meeting after the closed session in honor of Mr. Larry Willis. With that, colleagues, we will take a 10-minute recess, and if you will make the call in, and we'll be ready to go about 12:50 p.m. So thank you very much for your time, and the meeting will be closed until we reopen after the closed session.
And happy holidays to everyone.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the California High-Speed Rail Authority Board of Directors meeting. We have been participating in closed session for the last couple of hours, and I am back to report that we have completed our closed session and we have nothing to report at this time. With that stated, again, may I wish all of you a very happy holiday. Please remain safe. We look forward to having you join us again next year. And as I mentioned earlier, we will now adjourn this meeting in honor of Mr. Larry Willis. The meeting is now adjourned. Good afternoon.